Closer, please. Thank you. So, guys, at 12:45, we're gonna meet in the bus. Okay? From now on, you have like an hour and 20 minutes. 12:45, we're gonna meet in the bus. That means that 12 and a half, more or less, you're supposed to get on the cable car. We ordered the pizzas for 12:45, so if you come after 12:45, not only you're gonna be late, also your pizza's gonna get cold. So please,
For everybody who's there first.
12:45, we're meeting in the bus. Okay.
Okay.
So I told you that the city was constructed during the Hellenistical period. Actually, it has quite an easy chronology. Beginning from the 3rd century BC until 2nd century, it was controlled by this descendant family coming from Alexander the Great in the Hellenistical period. In the 2nd century, it was passed to the Roman Empire, and Romans reconstructed the entire city. They put these nice temples. The city had a lot of money. As I told you, it was designed as a fortress to keep the money of one particular Greek dynasty. So they actually had a lot of money, and they started building these huge constructions in the city, like the altar of Zeus. Okay, we have many famous temples in the city from the Roman times, but the most famous one is that one because it's something quite symbolic. Okay, the Zeus cult is quite common in the city. You already know that every city that we went usually has the cult of a god or goddess. In Hierapolis, it was Apollo. In Ephesus, it was Artemis. Here we have the Zeus. Okay? And having a Zeus cult, the god of all the gods in the Greek mythology, is a privilege. So this is an indication of the richness of the city, actually. So this huge altar that we call actually looks like a temple. Because when I say altar, usually in our imagination, there is just an altar, but it's not like that. Imagine a building of this size, more or less. It has stairs in order to go up. Once you go up, you enter a huge hall where you would find a lot of statues. And also you would see on the exterior part of the temple a lot of scenes from the mythology, usually mythological stories about Zeus himself being depicted actually in the beautiful Greek art made out of marble, not the local marble, but other marble coming from more rare species actually. And the Zeus altar was actually the most touristic thing. Okay, so this is the thing about Pergamon. People are coming here as tourists in order to see those huge Greek temples. We have lots and lots of travel accounts of the Roman travelers coming to Pergamon in order to make a stop at the hospital. Later on, I will explain you the hospital too, but also visit those beautiful temples. I don't want to say taking pictures, they didn't have cameras back then, but something similar. You would enter to each temple to buy a statue, a small souvenir, or something like that. So it looks like this huge cult center where you would find a lot of entertainment, a lot of alcohol, a lot of things actually in the city center of Pergamon. Later on, it was destroyed by the earthquakes and it lost its importance, as I told you. There used to be a river passing close by. Today we don't have it. I don't know if you paid attention, but when we were coming up with the cable car, on the left-hand side, right-hand side, I'm sorry, there was a dam, huge dam. Okay. Once we go down, we will see that. We also have the dam right now, but anciently it was a river actually feeding the entire city. And when that river dried up, as you might imagine, they just left the site of Pergamum. We talked about these three levels. The residents and the working class are different, and this is the top part. So in order to come here, you would have to be a Roman citizen, paying taxes, or you had to be like one of the governors of the city in order to arrive to this inner circle. This is the highest point or acropolis of the Pergamum. What do we have around us? Quickly, I can explain this to you. This is the Temple of Trajan, okay, the famous Roman emperor, but it was built after his death. It was built by Hadrian, one of his successors, in order to honor his memory. The original size was a lot bigger. The archaeologists only reconstructed this part in order to give you an idea about the size of the temple. So it was approximately this high, okay? And inside there was this huge altar. You will see that the type of stone here is different. What we have in the ground, what we have in the walls, what we have in the base of the Trajan temple, this is not marble, it's called andesite. Okay? We have huge deposits of andesite in the city of Pergamon. So this is actually local extraction, local material that they used in the construction of the city. Once we go to Sardis and Thyatira right now, you will also see the same material. As you can see, it's quite different from the marble. So they enjoyed this huge deposit in order to construct their cities, and thus temple had some parts too. During the excavations, they found a statue of the Trajan himself. Luckily, they didn't take it to Berlin. It's here. You can see it over there. Okay, that is the only surviving part of the statue itself. The famous library of Pergamon was built up closer to the temple, so those ruins you're seeing there at the end, it looks like the fragments of a wall. This library, the famous library, were more or less located over there. That was built by the Roman period. Yesterday we talked about its importance. I told you that this was the second biggest one in the ancient Greek world, and there was this huge competition between the libraries. So in order to continue to write their books, they invented the parchment, the lamb leather. Some travel accounts say that between the shelves where they had the pergamon scrolls, parchment scrolls, and the wall itself, there was this distance of approximately 2 meters in order to protect this parchment rolls from the inner humidity. So it was constructed particularly to keep all these books. And usually the library was famous with the medicinal books because we have a very famous hospital here. We're not going to visit, it's not a part of our itinerary. But when you go to that terrace, you can see an aqueduct and some other ruins. There we have a place called Asclepion. Okay. Asclepius is the Greek goddess of medicine in the mythology. And in the ancient world, in Greece, also in Asia Minor, you would find his temples. These temples are cult places, so you would see that a lot of monks of Asclepius are living inside. They are medical schools. It means that if you wanted to be a doctor during the Greco-Roman times, you were supposed to study in Asclepion. At the same time, they worked as hospitals. We're not talking about regular hospitals that you would go when you have colds, okay? These are modern spas, modern in the ancient sense, that was utilized to treat some mental illnesses, okay? Our definition of mental illness and their definition of mental illness is quite different. Galenos, one of the most famous, actually, doctors of the Greco-Roman times, was born in Pergamon. He studied in this Asclepion, and he was the personal doctor of the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius. Okay, so that's why the Asclepion that we have here is quite important. The legend says that the founder of the city, he was visiting a Greek island. During his journey, he fell from his horse and broke his leg. And he received a treatment in an Asclepion in a Greek island, and he enjoyed this place so much he wanted to also make a dedication to this Greek god of medicine, Asclepion. And when he came back to the Pergamon, he started constructing this huge hospital in the place. Okay, it has a very long history, but keep in mind that anciently this medical services provided by this hospital was quite important, and people would come here in order to have fun, but at the same time they were also looking for a lot of treatment in this mental hospital. Okay, and Galenos, this famous doctor, wrote a lot of things, a lot of books. He performed some actually operations on the bodies, on the cadavers. So what he wrote in the first century was used up until the Middle Ages in the field of medicine. This is why he is so central and important to the history of Greek medicine. He talks about this mental illnesses called black love, for example. That means like platonic love. If you love someone and it's not mutual, that was considered as a mental illness for the Greek people. And you would come. Still true until a certain extent, I think. It can be considered sometimes as a mental illness if you're obsessed with someone. So you would come to this hospital in order to seek treatment, okay? All sorts of diseases were treated in the hospital. That's why it's so famous. And the library itself had these medical records. Unfortunately, in the first century AD, all the books of the Pergamon library was transferred to Alexandria in Egypt as presents of Mark Antony to the Cleopatra. Okay, that's why today we don't have any pieces of the original collection, but the library was quite important in the city. During your visit, please use this terrace. You're gonna find some people taking pictures. Once you go there, first of all, you're gonna find this beautiful modern city of Pergamon. Okay, and on your left-hand side, you're gonna find the theater. That is the most steep theater of the ancient world. It has a capacity for approximately 11,000 people. Okay, and it's 41 degrees, almost like this. So it is very difficult to go up the theater, walk on the theater. I'm not gonna suggest that you do it, especially if you have vertigo or problems. It's not a safe space. The theater was so steep, it didn't have any orchestra. If you pay attention, you will see that we saw an orchestra yesterday, or the other day before, in the theater of the Ephesus, right? It was this huge round marble construction. This one is so steep, it's basically on a hilltop. They actually used an wooden, made out of wood, wooden orchestra that they can attach and detach. When they have the place, they will put it. When they do not have the place, just because it was so windy, they used to take it off. You will find that beautiful theater too. And on your way out, you're going to use the same platform to go outside of the city. On your right hand side, you're going to find the square that has a lot of homes. You actually saw it. I think that's the Agora, that's the marketplace. You will use the same products, and eventually you will also see the place of the altar of Zeus. Okay, which is referred as the throne of Satan in the letters. You will see that in the letters. Soon we will talk about it. The consumption of this prohibited meat is the thing, and if an issue. Imagine that the city was filled with temples, basically making if they were 24/7, keeping the sacrifice meat. Of course, Christians could not eat that, so we are related to that. You will see that in those letters. You will see that the letters are referring to a personality, one of the disciples of the Joan, named Antipas. Okay, in the city. This is a Christian saint that was killed by the Roman authorities in this city, and he was killed by a very cruel technique. You will see that Antipas is coming. If you look at an image of the Antipas, you will find a saint that was located inside of a huge pot. Okay, this is one of the torture techniques that was used during the Middle Ages too. The biography of Antipas, his life story says that he was placed inside of this copper pot, okay, and practically cooked until his bones become jewelry, like shiny enough to make jewelry. That's why his suffering is a very common element in Christian literature. Of course, Antipas was in the literature. Okay, I think my explanations are that. I'm just thinking about the